off. Everyone should see a notification we're recording. That's just, I've already gotten a few emails from people who weren't able to join us today. So, and it's good. We keep these recordings and we're still able to share with everyone who weren't able to join us. Awesome. We'll give one more minute and then we'll kick things off. Like I said, we've got a good action-packed agenda and some good announcements coming up for some of the things that Esri is working on. But we want to highlight as most we can the work Stephen and the team in St. Louis has been doing with their bus stop collection and information. So really excited to see what they've been going on. So a few more people. Carlos and Charlotte, good to see you. Dahe from WMATA, glad you could join us. Yeah, we've got a good group. We're going so far. All right, well, we're a couple minutes past the hour. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, so we're going to kick things off. Thank you for joining us for our spring meeting of the Esri Transit User Group, our third meeting since we kicked off at the UC last year. And I got to say, each one of these meetings has been better and better. And so I'm excited for where we are going with this forward. And again, thank you for joining us. Can everyone see my screen okay? Can you see the Transit User Group title slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. All right. So here's going to be our agenda for today. We got a few announcements. I want to keep that as brief as we can, but there's some good stuff coming up. Highlight of our meeting today is Stephen from St. Louis going to be giving us some information on how they're using ArcGIS for their bus stop information and data collection. And then my favorite part is this open forum. You can talk to transit agencies from across the country. I'm seeing ones from East Coast to West Coast, Southern to Northern. Great group of people here. So if you have specific questions that you want to bring up, that's what our open forum is really for, to get you a way to talk to agencies in a way that probably we haven't seen before. So again, thank you for joining. So let's jump into the announcements. The announcements are going to be centered around really one big thing that we have coming on from Esri, that obviously that is our user conference. Just a few days away. We're looking at July 10th through the 23rd, or excuse me, to the 23rd. That would be a heck of a conference, but no, it's the 10th through the 14th in San Diego. We've got our detailed agenda is available now. So while I talk about this detailed agenda, I'm actually going to launch, actually, no, we're going to hold off on 1 second here on that. The detailed agenda is available. And a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention. For those of you who will be going, if you can get there, Sunday night is our transpiration. I should change that to transportation social. Sunday night, the 9th at 6:30. Great way to meet not only people from transit, but also people from across the country and different areas of the transportation section. Wednesday, the 12th, is going to be our transit special interest group meeting. We're still working on the agenda for that, but we're going to be having some great presenters and show some of the things that Esri is working on, especially in transit. Now, this is a new part here, not a new part, but a new announcement. There will be digital access so those of you who are not able to attend in person. I know we've had this the last few years, and we're doing it again this year, is digital access will be available. So those of you who are on maintenance, where you would be able to get to the user conference for no charge, same thing here. And those of you who might not have maintenance for your Esri contract, that digital access is only $99. So if you're not able to attend with us in person in San Diego, this digital access, you'll be able to get access to not only the plenary, 60 different live sessions of the technical sessions. So if you want to learn more about ArcGIS Pro, Survey 123, anywhere those sessions will be available, and then a variety of more once the access or once the recordings are done. So with that, I'm actually going to launch my poll now. Is the user conference attendance. So those of you who we're just trying to get a sense of who's going to be there in person and who's going to be attending virtually. And some great, we're having some polls roll in. Looks like we've got a few people attending in person. And hopefully, if you didn't know about the digital access, you could see that in there. Okay, so let it go for another minute or so. Looks like we're about half and half, which is great. Some people attending in person and virtually. So that's great. I love to see that we've got some people going to be able to attend in person and so on. So I'll just end that now. 8 people will be able to join in person, others virtually. So I'll just share that so everyone can see those. Great response here. So anyway, if you're not able to attend in person, highly suggest and recommend that you see this digital access to where you can get a lot of the information from the user conference itself. So, all right. Share that down. Okay. Before we go on, does anyone have any specific questions about the user conference itself? Feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any questions. Hearing crickets. So one thing that if you are new to attending the user conference, those who are going to be going, highly recommend you take a look at that detailed agenda. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I know I've helped others with user conference, planning their agenda, understanding the information about what, if you're attending a paper session, how fast can you get to the technical sessions? Those kind of things that just come from being there over time. Perfect. And I see, Seth, thank you for putting that in the chat about the public transit activity flyer for the UC. Specific sessions that are geared towards our user group here for the transit. So, but yes, if anyone has questions about the user conference, if with any information, feel free to reach out to me, to your account teams. We're more than willing to help you understand the logistics of the user conference, but also be able to help you get the most out of it. So, all right. With that, I'm not hearing any good questions. So let's get to what we're all here and excited to hear about is Stephen from St. Louis. I'll stop sharing and you can take over the screen and go ahead and share that, and we'll turn the time over to Stephen.
Okay, everybody see my Survey 123 Connect screen?
We got you.
Okay, great. Just a little bit of background on myself. My name's Stephen Hughes. I work for St. Louis Metro Transit. I've been with the agency for 11 years. I actually work in the IT department, and I am the primary administrator for ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise environments. So back around September of last year, we were speaking to Corey about how he had done bus stop assessments back during his days in public transit in Arizona, and he provided us a what ended up for us being the template for our bus stop assessment survey. So IT, myself, working with our planning department and our engineering department to get some things put together in the assessment. We worked about 6 months going back and forth to get what you'll be seeing today during this presentation. One of the things that we've done is we use pool data with our Trapeze bus stop data to pull our bus stop and route information. So once we enter the stop ID, we'll get the location description, the jurisdiction of the stop, and the position. Now, one of the things that we added to the original that we got from Corey, is this needs assessment score at the bottom. This is something that our engineering department helped us develop to determine the state of a particular bus stop based on the amenities that are available and whether or not the stop is ADA compliant. We've got over 3,000 stops in our service area. And so we really wanted to be able to get a handle on what improvements we can make and where we can make those improvements to get the most bang for the buck. And you'll see a little bit about how we have worked on that later on. Of course, we select an assessor name, and we've got some things tied into that you'll see as we go through. And we used paging to basically take a paper process that they were doing on a checklist to get this automated. We populate the information from our trapeze data. So all of the amenity data is coming from what we have stored in the trapeze stops table. Then we've added some questions about how the stop sign is mounted and whether or not the bus stop is current. And if we click on the link, this will take us to a web page within our Metro St. Louis web page to show the current stop sign. A bunch of other questions related to conditions of amenities, access by crosswalk. One of the things that our safety department wanted to add is sight lines to be able to determine whether or not there's lighting. In this pop-up, we asked some questions to get an objective answer, excuse me, to sight line compromise. So things like opaque barrier of a shelter, things like that. Another thing that we've added to the template is the geopoint lat long, where you're at when you're taking the survey, compared to the trapeze latitude and longitude. And we use a calculation to get a distance in feet. Now, of course, this one's going to be way off because the stop that I used is in St. Louis, but I'm on the other side of the river in Illinois. And yeah, we're going to be a little ways away. But we did want to be able to determine the accuracy of the location because stop signs have been moved and lat longs may not have necessarily been updated in trapeze when that sign was moved. Added a comments field. And then our next page is for submitting a service request. Now, things like the assessor name, and we have a poll data table behind the scenes that adds their phone number and email address, and also populates the stop ID and stop description. And additionally, the comments from the second page will be populated into that service request. So they only need to document the issue one time. And we're working on with Trapeze to try to get this data entry automated into our asset management system. Right now, what I've done is I've built a webhook through Make, and it sends an email to our asset management team to let them know that there is a service request that needs to be submitted. Our next page is ADA compliance. And there is a label down at the bottom. And again, based on formulas in the spreadsheet, we determine ADA compliance. And because we have shelter bus stops and non-sheltered bus stops, we did have to create two different calculations to show ADA compliance for whether or not a bus has a shelter or does not have a shelter. And then lastly, a photo page to take images of the stop from an overall image, a close-up, and then we also have a couple of different spots for additional images, things like crosswalk cuts and things like that they want to be able to see. So now that we've collected all that data, what are we doing with it? So flip over here. We've got a web map app that has been built to show our stops color-coded based on their needs assessment score. So you can see that there's a fairly good mix of stops that are in good shape versus stops that are in not so good shape. And things like up here in St. Charles, this is an industrial area, so we don't have a lot of sidewalks, and a lot of these stops are basically just a, sticking a sign in the ground, and we want to do some things to improve these. Now, what we've done in this map is we've got a couple of different layers. So we have the layer of stops assessed by their assessment score. We also have stops assessed based on their ADA compliance, blue being compliant and red being non-compliant. So you see that there are a lot of non-compliant stops. And again, based on stops not being placed with sidewalks or stops that don't have the concrete pad to get them from the sidewalk to the bus. Additionally, we've added a couple of equity-based layers to show poverty level and justice 40, which are very similar layers. But we did want to use this because our city leadership is emphasizing equity and justice in the social area. And so we want to do some things to improve our stops in the lower income areas of St. Louis. So we do have a fairly good stretch of stops that are in good shape in these areas. But of course, we've just started this we've just started using the survey in March, and we're still obviously progressing through our system. So this is also something that we can use for our aldermen in the different wards when they ask us questions about improvement. And also this is something that they can use to help get funds to improve stops within their ward. The second piece that we've done was that with this is I built a dashboard based on the stop assessments, and they're actually out in the field today working on assessments. And so what we see, the number of assessments submitted during the date range that's been submitted, and then we see the list, and you can search the list based on any of the fields that are showing in the list. Now, if we click on one of the records in the list, it opens up an embedded survey in the dashboard. And the assessors can actually go through and edit if they need to, whether it's comments or an amenity that needs to be updated, things like that, so that they don't necessarily have to execute a brand new survey. And so this is where we are after a couple of months of active use and 6 months of development. So now if you all have questions, which I'm sure folks probably do, and one thing that I will do is I'll put my email address in the chat so that if you do have any questions offline, you can shoot me an email and I can do some things like send you the XML or those kinds of things.
Awesome. That is a very, very impressive, Stephen. I love that last dashboard that you were showing, to where the assessors can go out and verify their work per se, or
Right.
if they need to make any changes, they're not doing that within the mobile device itself. So very
Right.
nicely done.
Right.
Thank
And
you.
we did want to make things like the needs assessment objective, just because there needed to be consistency. And one of the things that we did do initially with this is we had assessors, as they go out into the field, we asked the assessors to go to a stop that was done by one of the other assessors and run the survey, so that we can see if there's any kind of maybe bias differential between the assessors to determine that needs assessment score. And it is actually very consistent based on what we've done. It was, like I said, it was condition of amenities. So let's see, the compromised sight lines, the damage to amenities, whether or not there was a bench or a garbage can, and then of course ADA compliance. And the ADA compliance was actually, the primary driver as to that needs assessment score, because it just plays such a big part in the access to the system.
Absolutely. Now, there was one question that came in the chat from Davida.
Okay.
Said, I may have missed it. How many stops do you have in your system?
We've got, I don't have the exact number. It's over 3,000.
Perfect.
Because
Now,
we
I
do
do have
have,
a couple follow-up questions if you're
yeah, let me
ready
just
for
jump to
that.
the
So
map
some of
real
you,
quick, because
go
our
ahead.
service area does span across the Mississippi River. We serve St. Clair County, Illinois, and then St. Louis City and St. Louis County in Missouri. So you see on the map, let me take the, oops, let me take this one layer off. You'll see that we haven't done any assessments on the Illinois side of the river. Because we need to coordinate that with the St. Clair County Transit District, because they're the owners of the stops and they place the stops where they want them. But we do want to have them assessed.
And you provide service to those stops.
Right.
I take it. Okay.
Right, we do.
Awesome. Well, would you mind going back to your Survey 123 Connect?
Sure.
So if you scroll down, some of the other ones you had about the sight lines and all of that, is that coming from your maintenance teams? Is that some of the information they need to collect, or what prompted you to add those additional things into the survey?
Well, like I said, because of safety concerns and some incidents that we've had in the past, they wanted to know what a stop looks like. And again, I'll bring this pop-up back up. So some of the things that we've seen in pictures that have been taken in assessments is we'll have a stop that's near an area that's got a lot of bushes that are not being trimmed by the city. And of course, again, St. Louis City has multiple jurisdictions, and so the single entity of St. Louis may not have the responsibility of maintenance for bushes or things like that. So it gives us a starting point to get this work done, to get this completed. But we also wanted to make sure that, like for the example, the shelter walls, we do have shelters that have ad panels in them, but we wanted to make sure that there's still clear glass that is not blocking what could potentially be an ambush point. Stop position based on traffic sight line. There's there have been issues in the past where maybe coming around a curve, the sight line doesn't really open well to traffic, and so we need to make sure that those kinds of things were identified, and then that we could work with the jurisdictions to get those things resolved. And again, like I said, primarily safety, but also our bus operations folks, because it does also come into operation safety. Also, this bus zone properly defined. So if we click no, we have some things that identify the bus stop zone. So things like curb paint or no parking signs. Do we have those types of identifiers to to keep people from blocking a bus stop, but also to make it easier for our operators to identify a stop, especially when it is just a sign on a post. So there are a few things that we did add to that original survey that you sent us.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering that. We have a couple more questions in the chat. Let's see, says, how did you come across the standards for ADA compliance? Is this information coming from a federal agency, or is it based off of city requirements?
Yeah, that is coming from the federal ADA website. And let me get to the page. So if you tap on one of the links in our question, and let me drag this over. Oops. Let's see, here we go. Didn't get it to my share. There we go. So this opens up the ADA accessibility standards website. And so each area in the survey has the identifier that's tied to section in the site. So if we go back here, so this, let's see, here we go. Let's look at accessible routes. So like curb ramps, the link in this link here will take you to the curb ramps so that they can reference it directly if when they're out in the field, because they're using, what they're doing right now is they're using just regular tablets with hotspots that they carry with them.
Awesome, thank you. Next question is from Drew at Coda. It says, this is great. How do you correct stop locations in trapeze if you discover they're off through your assessment?
That's actually something that we're working on, because we do want to, we're looking at maybe getting a high accuracy GPS receiver so that we can really nail down the lat long of that particular site. But what we would end up doing is notifying our planning department there's a discrepancy, and then they would send out their folks to reread the location of that stop, and then it would be changed manually in trapeze. Same thing with the amenities. What we're doing right now is we're putting together monthly data sets for our planning department so that if there have been changes, they can do a comparison to the trapeze data and update the amenities, based on those changes. And then adding the service requests into our asset management. We're using Trapeze EAM for asset management, and we're looking for a way to tie the feature service into the system so that that service request is automatically pushed once it's submitted. Since I'm on vacation, I haven't had a chance to. We had a meeting right before I went on vacation, and then I got the information on who to contact. So I'll be making those calls Thursday when I go back to work.
Perfect. Thank you for that one. Next question is, you have all your stops in the layers in your web map and just show certain ones that are deemed needed for assessment, or do you just adding the stops as you go?
Those are just being added as they go.
Okay. I think that's all of the specific questions that have come in through the chat. Does anyone, feel free to unmute yourselves, and if you have questions for Stephen, please feel free to do that.
Hey, Stephen, this is Carlos. I work for Charlotte, and I've been here in the transportation field for about a year, so I'm still kind of getting used to everything. But this is definitely something that I've been trying to look into achieving, and I'm just curious, okay, so like I have a lot of questions, but I'm gonna try and maybe just email you some of these later.
Sure.
But so one question, you're mentioning these assessors that are going out and using this. So is it only like a certain group that's using this? Because one thing, for instance, that I'm like looking into is like as I start to bring this up to people, I feel like a lot of different groups would use this, but I just don't know how to. I mean, I guess like who to train, and because I know a lot of people out there doing maintenance, people doing like land development. So I'm just curious, like who all is using this?
Well, right now it is just our assessors from our planning department, again, because they've been trained, they know exactly what they're looking for, especially when it comes to, let me flip over to the ADA compliance. So, excuse me, making sure that the walking surfaces, measuring the walking surfaces, and then also, excuse me, measuring these vertical changes to make sure that there are no trip hazards. So, but realistically, if you train a group of your maintenance people or a group of your planning people on, what they're doing, what to do when they're out in the field, again, taking the measurements, because there are a few other measurements, at least for us, we check to see if the height the sign is a certain measurement, or that the sign and pole are at least 24 inches away from the roadway. So if you provide the training to your groups of folks, then obviously you're opening up to a wider number of individuals that can perform the work.
Thank you.
And our planning department is looking at, because the 3 assessors actually have other responsibilities that they need to take care of. They're looking at trying to hire a couple of individuals that would be able to do this full time without any other distractions. Because again, because of the number of stops we have, it's going to take us, what we figured it would probably take nearly 2.5 years for the 3 people that are doing it. If they could dedicate 40 hours per month to doing assessments. So we want to try to expedite the process of getting these stops looked at. Again, because there's funding out there to make improvements, and we want to try to capitalize on that. And of course, Carlos, you have my email address in the chat, and everybody has my email address through the chat. Don't hesitate to ask any questions, and I'd be more than happy to send the XML file to you so you can start your own version of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely be doing that.
All right, Steve, we have another question in the chat from Ernest from VIA. It says, you populated from Trapeze. Can you populate from ArcView?
Well, what we've done, let's see, let me go here. So what we did with our Trapeze data is we ran and our route data is we ran queries, and we're saving the routes table as this route CSV file and the stops table as the stop CSV file. So I really haven't played with any live data. We are working on automating this update process as our service changes are made, because we don't want to have to republish the survey every time we update either of these 2 CSV files. I would probably maybe put that up in the community and see if you can get an answer that way. I did get some good input from the community when asking some questions about some of the formulas that I had to use and some of the pull data stuff that I did. So you should be able to get an answer that way.
Awesome, thank you. That is all of the questions that I see in the chat right now. Looks like you might be getting some follow-up from Davida in Suntrans in Tucson. She's got a lot of Trapeze questions for you. So
okay,
that'll be coming. Any other questions for Stephen?
I just have one more.
Sure.
Just curious, Stephen, is this a solution you came up on, you decided that you needed and just came up with on your own, or was this from input from like bus stop planners?
So Corey gave us the initial assessment. They were using that in Arizona, and then we basically ran a software development process and went back and forth with our planning department and with our engineering group to determine the needs assessment score. So our planning department knew that they needed to do something because it had been, and I don't know if you saw the information here, over 20 years, this last assessment date in the Trapeze record, that they needed to do something to make this process easier and get it out of paper, because for anybody that knows or that uses Trapeze, the stop data just holds the current stops. There's no historical data on where a stop was, if a stop was moved and why it was moved and things like that. And then of course there's no assessment table. So they wanted to be able to create a database of these assessments and stop locations, and to be able to get to it whenever they needed to get to it. So the need was there, and I've used Survey 123 quite a bit. That's really how we made our money with ArcGIS at St. Louis Metro. I built surveys for our safety department, and we've used it in some other areas. Our shelter cleaning group uses a survey, and actually whenever they put out a new contract for shelter cleaning, part of the contract is that the contractor will use Survey 123 to record their work. Again, you talk about a group who has banker's boxes upon banker's boxes worth of paper from checklists over the past. Of course, now their data is stored in ArcGIS Online in perpetuity, and they can access it whenever they need it. So just to kind of wrap it up in a bow, it was a need that was there. And I knew that the Survey 123 capability could do what they wanted it to do. Fortunately, timing and everything worked out. You know, we had talked to Corey and we're talking about this, and he's like, "Hey, I have this. Let me show it to you." And I was like, "Okay, Corey, I need a copy of that." And that's where we started taking off with this.
Perfect. And I just how Stephen was mentioning, getting them kicked off with this template. If anyone else would like the template that I started, which is a little bit not as advanced. I mean, this one, the one
Yeah.
Stephen's showing is specific for the needs that St. Louis has. I have,
Yeah.
like I said, a very, I don't want to say broad, but what would you say, Stephen, got you 90% of the way there?
Yeah, it was, I would say probably 95%, just because, you know, I mean, you had all the calculations and everything built in, all the formatting. You know, most of what we did was just the additional questions and then the formula for the needs assessment, which was really just kind of piggybacked off the way that the ADA formulas determined compliance or non-compliance. So, so this is the file here that I'm scrolling through. You can see. Let's see. Let me. So the calculations really get crazy when we're, you know, looking at again ADA compliance, and we had to create two formulas, one for stops that have shelters and one for stops that don't have shelters. So yeah, the calculations were a great help. There was just a few small questions that I ended up getting answered through the community. But yeah, yours would be, your example would be just as good as mine, if not better. That way you can tweak, you know, with Corey's, you can tweak it and add to it. Whereas ours, you're probably going to strip a lot of stuff away because there's probably things that you don't necessarily need.
And every transit agency is different. I mean,
Yes.
what the requirements are, you know, there's a certain set of requirements from the FTA, but everyone works in their own region, their own, you know, it's a nice way of saying the politics are different in each region. The focuses are different in each region. That's why these templates that we're working on, hey, we'll help you get, like Stephen said, 95% of the way there. That last 5% is what you make it yours. That's what you make it exactly what you're looking for. There was a question for you, Stephen, that came in on the chat from Drew, again from CODA. Is there a plan to make any of this data public facing or used in trip planning or marketing?
We have not discussed it. Like I said, this map may be something down the road that we share. Again, just because the you know, again, when you talk about the political side of it, the different wards wanting to see stops in their ward and what they can do to improve. But the rest of the information we really haven't talked so much about.
Perfect. Okay, well, again, Stephen, I'm absolutely thrilled with what you were able to take and make it specific to what St. Louis is doing. And this is just great stuff. I mean, great usage of GIS in going forward with this. So props to you, props to everyone at St. Louis. Very, very nicely done.
Well, I'd have to say props to you and props to Esri, you know, getting interested in the transit space, because this would have probably been something that I would still be working on if I had not had the foundation that you provided to get this put together.
Perfect. So Valdez from Sun Metro, you're asking where to get the file or template. Are you looking for Stevens or the one that you was mentioned that I put together? Either way, if you want to contact me, we can get you in touch with that kind of information.
Yeah, and like I said, shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of the file.
All right. Any last questions for Stephen before we move on to our next section? I'm hearing nothing. So Stephen, thank you again for taking the time on your vacation to do this for us. We really appreciate it. Again, great work that you're doing, and keep it going. I got to say, I'm excited for what comes of this, and hopefully we can take some of the ideas that you've come up with and really push that forward to agencies across the country.
Yeah.
All right. So next part we have is our open forum. So what this is really designed for is, this isn't me talking to you about what Esri has, what Esri can do. This is for all of you to talk to each other. Any questions that, I would say it doesn't even have to be GIS related. Any questions that you might have of another transit agency, I think this is a great time to just take yourself off mute, ask the group as a whole, do we have any experience with such and such, or whatever you're looking for. And if you have an answer, please unmute yourself and go with that as well. So let's open it up to the group.
Hey, Corey, it's Eric. I was wondering if
Hi,
I might
Eric.
be able to just lease it. Hey, how are you?
Good. Before you get in, Eric, I want to actually introduce you. So,
Okay.
Unless you were planning on doing that yourself.
Nope. I was just asking to see if I could do that. You're welcome to go ahead. I just wanted to, make sure everybody knew I was a resource now and knew why I was on the call.
Please, you know what? I'll let you do it. You know yourself better than I do. But Eric is a new addition here to Esri, working with transit agencies. So Eric, I'm just going to hand it off to you and let you do that.
Fantastic. I appreciate it, Corey. Sorry for not coming up on camera. I'm driving to a client meeting, just pulled over. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Eric Henderson. I'm here. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, so I'm on the East Coast. My background is in GIS and both rail and a little bit of transit. I worked for CSX here in Jacksonville for about 14 years. And then for a couple of years worked with LiDAR, with transit agencies and short lines. And I am now the director of the rail and transit markets at Esri, excuse me. Gosh, got to break that habit. I've been here about 3 months at Esri. I've been working with Corey so far, and he, was great to introduce me to this group. I will be running, for those of you who are coming to the UC, I will be at the Transit SIG and putting together that agenda. So I will open it up and let everybody, any questions anybody has for me, let me know. But what I'm really interested to hear is if anybody has any sort of requests for what they'd like to see from Esri from the SIG, or to allow anybody that wants to, present or talk, or what can I do to make the SIG most impactful for you guys, for those of you who are coming. So great to meet all of you. Thank you for including me, and love to hear from you.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric. Eric and I were just actually at a presentation, so some transportation agencies in California. He's got a great background, great resource. Feel free to reach out with any questions. I mean, between the two of us, we've got a good background and knowledge of GIS usage and transit and so on. So please, any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Sorry, I'm including you on that, Eric, but throwing you in with the group on that too.
Nope, my pleasure. That's what I'm here for.
That's a great idea. Yeah, great idea, Corey.
All right. Any other questions for the group?
So I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right,
Would you mind introducing yourself?
So I'm Damien from Sun Metro here in El Paso, Texas. I have like less than a year working here. I just recently got out of the military, so a lot of this is super new to me. And currently, right now, we have a total of about 2,890 bus stops that we're looking at updating and revalidating through all its fields of like if they have shelters, if they have trash cans, stuff like that. And currently, right now, it's kind of just me. So trying to see if there's like a process out there that maybe would help, you know, make this process a little bit faster in terms of like updating the field or anybody knows how to do that. I was thinking maybe in Python or something like that, but hopefully somebody out there has something to help get this process rolling.
I'll leave it for the group, but yeah,
What-
Damien, let's chat more after our meeting. We have some tools that might help you on the Esri side, but anyone from the group, I mean, I see Carlos, you're unmuting yourself. I'm sorry, didn't mean
Yeah.
to cut you off.
I was just curious, what is it that you're trying to update? Just like specific fields?
Yeah,
Or is there
just
s-
yeah. So within our data set, we have like all like the shelter. Is it ADA compliant? Does it have a trash can? Does it have all that? And we're having to like re-go through all those fields and revalidate them. So it's a pretty big project, and I just don't know if anybody's kind of like familiar with that, and
But
or
what,
maybe has.
so I guess my question is, when you say you're trying to revalidate it, like, are you just, how are you, for instance, let's say you have a stop that does have a shelter and maybe your data, like, how are you finding out that something needs to be changed? Is it just like a list or?
Yeah, so we're going off like for one, the historical data that's been here.
Mhm.
And so we have assessors that are going out per vehicle actually visiting these stops, in person, and then updating it through a system that eventually updates our system. But this is like a work in progress. It's very slow, and I'm just trying to see if there's something out there maybe that could help refine this a little bit better. But I have like access to imagery from a company called Digital Globe that I've been using to kind of see, near real-time imagery for that. But other than that, I mean, we're pretty kind of at a standstill.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I definitely, obviously, I'm just hearing your question now, so I don't really know too much about what your process is, but I guess for me, what I would be like, kind of what I'm thinking here is if these updates are going to be specific on like actual data or actual like, I don't know, like someone going out there and saying, hey, these three have shelters, these three don't, like, I guess for me, like I'm thinking like, I feel like it'd be kind of hard to automate something like that unless I'm like misinterpreting this. Like you can group select, I guess, and if there's some sort of pattern you can determine in terms of like what groups might have certain changes, you can maybe update those. But I guess this for me, I guess the complication is that it's not so much, unless I'm wrong, that you're just trying to update like all of them to say they have shelters. It's just like specific ones. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's sometimes it can be specific. So like I think this is kind of like where Python might come into use, right? Is where it's like I'm trying to identify um all these shelters, and I kind of want to change them in a certain way that I kind of become restricted from ARC to change. Or yeah, there's some that it's just like this is completely outdated. We need somebody to go out there physically and do everything, because I have to see all the fields get changed and revalidated. Um so yeah, I do understand it's a little hard process to automate, but it's also very difficult for us to move forward when we're having to re-go and validate every other stop, like basically all of them all over again. So
Yeah, I'm not sure. It does kind of sound more
yeah,
complicated than just like just like creating a new field and
yeah,
just field calculating a bunch of things in there. I mean, if you're thinking, because I know like for me, like sometimes I'll think like, oh, if I could just find an area with bus stops that maybe meet a certain qualification in terms of a curb line and parking lot, but
yeah,
I feel like that's like very
yeah.
complicated and maybe even, maybe I'm just thinking too
Yeah.
far ahead, so I'm
No,
not sure.
no. No, yeah, I understand. I honestly think it may have to do with the structure, so that's why kind of interested in the template and see how you guys have a structure, and maybe trying to go that route. Just because like since we're starting basically from the bottom up at this point, I mean, I think it's a perfect time to restructure some things as well. So I think that's kind of what we'll move forward to.
Well, I
It'll
will
be
say,
fun.
so in terms of like the schema or whatever, like I know that I'm not sure, I haven't gotten what Corey sent Steven, but I'm gonna ask him for that. But from kind of what I've seen, it does seem like some of that stuff, just like the general shelter, ADA compliant, like that is. I've only been here a year as well, but it does kind of seem like from what I'm seeing when I go to these meetings like that, there is kind of a uniform, structure to bus stops.
Yeah, I believe that, that's one of the biggest things that we're working on with this template that I handed over to Stephen and a few others on the call have used. There is especially depending on what type of scheduling software you use, whatever it might be, that you're right, Carlos, there's pretty much a standard type of fields that are need to be collected. And then there's certain ones like Stephen showed of the line of sight and a few others that are individualized. But for the most part, yes, I think you're right, Carlos. I think there is a pretty much a standard, even though it's an unofficial standard of what types of stops and information you need to collect by those stops. And Damien, we're more than happy to help you get that template, go through that, kind of go through your workflows. Let's talk a little bit more, and I'm happy to help you with that.
Yes, sir. I think I have your email, so I'll go ahead and shoot you an email.
I'll put it in the chat right now.
Corey.
Davida, I saw you jumped on. Did you have a
Yeah.
response?
I did have a response. So Damien, we actually started with the fields. So I do have the template. Corey helped me get it started, and we actually combined maintenance with our ADA assessment. And we started with the fields that are in trapeze. And to answer somebody's question earlier on, our goal is to eventually have this be our forward face, part of it to be our forward facing information, especially the ADA accessibility part, not the maintenance part. But we're working on trying to come up with processes internally, but we started with the trapeze information. And right now we're going through a COA, and as part of our COA, the consultant was asked to use the ADA assessment component of the survey 123, and they've gone through it really fast, a lot faster than they expected to. So I think we're all working on processes, and I'd be happy to share what we've started. But it's taken us a little while to get up and running because we've had some changes in our department, and we only have one bus stop coordinator who actually does go out and look at each stop individually at some point over the course of the year.
Yeah, that sounds like a good step. I really like that idea, so definitely get with you later on that.
Yeah, that works. And Corey can get you my information, but Suntran, we're here in Tucson, and I know Sun Metro is in El Paso, so we're really close.
Oh yeah, we're not that far off.
I'd also just like to point out that I am from Tucson.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I'm glad we're able to get you some help, Damien, and get you some contacts going forward. But yeah, this is what I love about this group is that someone comes in with a question, there's people always helping. So thank you for that. Any other questions on that, Damien, before we have a few more minutes, see if we have any other topics to cover.
No, that's pretty much all from my end.
Great. And I did put my email in the chat, Damien. Feel free to send me an email and we can set up a time and we can go over this a little bit.
Yes, sir.
More in depth.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great conversation. Anything else? Anyone else wants to bring up? times like this where it's the lull of the meeting, I always hear the Jeopardy music playing in the back of my head.
Well, hey, transit planner guys,
Hey,
coming
Mark.
right around the corner. Hey, it's right around the corner. Go ahead and reach out to me. We'll schedule some time to take a deeper dive for your particular organization and see what that looks like. I think obviously you're going to see Corey here in the next, I think, couple weeks. So you'll have a chance to see him face to face. But if you'd like to schedule a meeting, let me know. And Corey and I would be happy to host something like that for a deep dive.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, last call in case anyone else wants to bring anything up. If not, then I'll give you 4 minutes back into your day. So any last chance, anyone else want to have something to bring up? All right, going once, going twice, sold. All right. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Great stuff from Stephen. Thank you again for presenting on what you're working on there in St. Louis. I think it's opened up a lot of creative ideas from the group itself. And as always, please do, if you have questions, if you have any thoughts, quandaries, whatever you want to call it, around how to use ArcGIS in transit, send them my way. So reach out to Mark, Pacific, and myself. We're happy to jump on a call, go over what your questions are, see how we can use Esri technology to help you with that. And for those of you who are able to make it out to San Diego for the user conference, I'll be out there. I'll be at the transit booth the entire time with the Transit SIG, working with Eric on those. Stop by, say hi. I can tell you we're trying to plan some transit industry type of activities around there. So be on the lookout. And thank you all again. I really appreciate it for your time here. And let's stay in touch. Let's keep moving the needle when it comes to using ArcGIS in transit. So thank you again. We'll catch you next time. Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.